Hello everyone! I'm excited about this game because it was recommended to me by one of my subscribers. I was told that it was the go-to horse game for dressage before Star Stable, at least for her, and since I'm dabbling around in SSO dressage, I wanted to give it a try. However, I'm not 100% sure that this is the correct game, though I'm really hoping it is. I tried looking it up on Google and couldn't find a definitive answer. This Riding Star is a re-release for Steam, is all I could really gather. But anyway, I am curious to see how the mechanics work for dressage and also the show jumping portion of this game. But before we get started, if you are new to the channel, please consider hitting that subscribe button. I would absolutely love to have you stick around. Okay, here we go. Right off the bat, I noticed that there are no options for changing keybinds. This scared me a little bit because using the arrow keys and the mouse is always more difficult than WASD. Of course, it's an older game, so it doesn't surprise me too much that there aren't many control options. There's a character creator with some simple options for hair, clothing, etc. You then have the option to choose your starter horse, a show jumper, or a dressage horse. I was here mainly to try out the dressage, so that's the horse I chose. Once you choose your horse, you can choose from a few different coat colors, mane and tail colors, and have the option to rename it. Not a whole lot to customize. Right away, I noticed that the horse model is very reminiscent of the model in My Riding Stable's Life with Horses. If you're not familiar with that game, I actually have a video of it that you can go check out under the Horse Games playlist. So this game offers a tutorial, and it's fully voice acted, which actually impressed me.
It's not a question of running faster or jumping higher. Above all, dressage requires grace and sensitivity.
It's also really good it offers a tutorial because once it started talking about the mechanics, it seemed very complicated. The system works like this. It's a circle which represents the horse's gaits. The bottom of the circle being a walk, the middle a trot, and the top portion a canter. The required gait lights up blue, and if you are on the wrong gait at any time, it will turn red. As I started my first lesson, the controls were difficult as I had feared. You don't use the arrow keys to steer, you use the mouse. It's a lot harder than it looks to stay on the dots. The sensitivity is really high. You use the left and right mouse buttons to increase and decrease speed while moving the mouse to steer. As I got more accustomed to this way of controlling the horse, it got a little easier. You did that extremely well. Were you even watching me? The second lesson touched on the inner portion of the circle, which represents the type of walk, trot, or canter. Collected, medium, or extended. This is where the arrow keys come into play. To do an extended gait, you hold the up arrow while in the corresponding gait. To perform a collected gait, you hold the down arrow. At this point, I was thinking, wow, this is incredibly detailed. I'm really excited about this. Then we got to the special moves portion of the tutorial. And I really hope I say all these correctly. They offer a PF, passage, traverse, turn on the forehand, and pirouette. And they're all offered in this very old horse game. To say I was becoming more and more impressed is an understatement. This, of course, raised the complexity of the controls. Now there was another meter to watch. When a special move had to be performed, this circle figure would appear under the horse. The inner portion of the circle represents which way you drag your mouse, while the outer areas represent the left and right arrow keys. You have to time the arrow keys with the beat of the horse, staying in harmony with it. At this point, I started to doubt that I could actually play this game, as much as I wanted to, but I went ahead and gave it a try anyway. As expected, it was hard. But the game sort of pauses itself to allow you to perform the right actions at the right times. At first, I couldn't get the hang of how to do the passage correctly for the life of me. I kept trying to move my mouse in the indicated direction while timing the left and right arrow keys with the horse. I finally realized what I was doing wrong and was able to do it. And, I have to say, it felt really rewarding to get it done right. And the animations all look pretty decent as well. After the tutorial, you're brought back to the barn where you care for your horse by brushing, feeding, watering, combing, picking the hooves, or petting. The horse has different care meters to keep up with. From here, you can also choose tack and even mane styles. It was obvious from these menus that you can unlock more variations as you go. There's also options to begin training, attend a tournament, or ride out. It seemed like there were so many things to do I couldn't wait to try it all. I also noticed in the top left corner the horse has stats for speed, power, stamina, motivation, and obedience. That led me to believe that you can train those stats, which I really like. After dressing my horse up and giving him a handsome hairstyle, I decided to jump into a training session to see what it was all about. Immediately, I liked this menu. It's a tier system where you begin training the different stats for the horse that I mentioned earlier. The first training session was pretty simple, mainly focusing on gait changes without having to worry about collections or special movements, and I did pretty well. I appreciate that at the top of the screen it shows you what move will need to be performed next, because it helps you to kind of mentally prepare. At the end of the lesson, there was this detailed scorecard showing exactly how much the horse improved and how well we performed each move with an accuracy percentage and corresponding score. This entire menu impressed me a lot with how much information it provided. After training, my horse was dirty, so I brushed his coat, combed his mane, and picked out his hooves. I want to point out real quick the detail in that when your horse is dirty, there are flies flying around. And also, when combing the mane and tail, you can actually see the messed up hair getting straight. I think that's a really nice touch. Anyway, I was notified that his obedience raised up 10% and that he was then able to compete in the 1-star competition. The first competition had 2 courses. The first one was similar to the training I had before, just changing simple gaits. Magic and I scored 100% on that course. The second course was also simple, except for an extended walk near the end. I messed up a couple times on this course because I was still trying to figure out the perfect timing on when to change the gates. It seemed like if I did it right on top of the circle, I'd still see the red pop up on the gate circle. I'd still get 10 points most of the time, but I wanted to get it exactly right. So I tested a few different timings, but never could get it exactly on time. For round 2, we got a 98.46%. Still really good. We won first place in that competition, which allowed me to choose another horse for another discipline. I didn't realize until this point that there's also cross-country in this game. I decided to explore a little bit before choosing my horse and discovered this office area where you can view competition progress on the PC, change your rider's clothes, and view your trophies. I decided to try the show jumping horse before the cross-country one. There was a tutorial similar to the tutorial for dressage, although show jumping doesn't have nearly as many controls. There's 2 simple mechanics: steer with the mouse and spur with the left click. The arrow keys are not involved at all with this discipline. The horse has a gauge on the top left showing his energy levels. The more you gallop and jump, the more tired he will get, so it's important to take that into consideration as you're completing the course. The top right shows the clock and how much time you have to finish a course. The red on the clock there shows that if you go over your time, for each second you're going to get a fault. It's important to be centered on the jump and go through the jumps in the correct order. I struggled for a while on figuring out exactly how to jump though. I tried spacebar, the arrow keys, but nothing. Finally, I figured out you have to click to spur the horse over. Once I figured that out, I got the hang of it pretty quickly. Oh, and one thing to note, you have to be very square on the jump or your horse will refuse. That's a little tricky to do while using the mouse to steer. After the tutorial, I went straight into the training. It was in this training that I realized you can't just gallop in between every jump. Not only because of the horse's energy level, but you actually need to strategize your gait and even count your strides. Like this combination jump here. At a gallop, my horse would refuse the second jump because the timing wasn't right. But if I slowed him down to a canter, 1 stride in between was enough to allow the second jump. I found that to be a fun mechanic and one that should definitely be there for any type of show jumping game. 1 session of training was enough to go into the first competition. The competition had 2 courses to run, just like the first dressage competition. Overall, I ran pretty well, but I got a refusal in both the first and second course. Aiko and I were still able to bring home first place though. Winning this competition unlocked the ability to get the last horse and final discipline cross country. As with the previous disciplines, there is a tutorial. Cross country is very similar in mechanics to show jumping, but for whatever reason, I struggled so hard to time the jumps correctly compared to the show jumping. It seemed a lot more hit or miss with the timing. I went ahead and trained, and it was during training that I figured out that if I spam left click right before the jump, about 95% of the time I'll clear it. Once I used that method, it wasn't so bad anymore. Still, it's my least favorite of the 3 sports. Once I trained and won the competition, I unlocked the ability to train all my horses up to star level 2, which would enable me to compete in the next star level 2 tournament. This training system is also reminiscent of my riding stable's life with horses. Now I fully understood the concept of the game. Train your dressage horse, compete and win. Then train your show jumping horse, compete and win. Then train your cross-country horse, train and win. Then you can move up to level 3, 4, etc. And obviously, as you progress, the courses get tougher. Out of all the disciplines, dressage is my favorite. It's the most in-depth of the 3, requiring a good amount of thought. It makes you feel like you're accomplishing something when you score well, which is rewarding. I don't know of any other game that offers dressage in this way. Equestrian the game I don't count because it's on mobile only, although I really do need to give that game a solid try. I decided to try the riding out feature to see what it had to offer. When I first came out, it was kind of jarring, almost. The sky was really bright, but honestly, it's a really pretty well done sunset. I thought it was really pretty. There's really no reason to ride around. There's nothing to find, no hidden gems or anything like that. You don't get training. But honestly, what impressed me the most of running around in this area was the ambience of it. If you go near, say, this foresty area, you're going to hear a lot of birds chirping and rustling and stuff like that. Whereas if you run near the ocean, you're going to hear big waves crashing. Of course, the ocean looks very flat and nothing's happening, but hearing it, it sounds pretty good. The music is pretty relaxing, and there's different little farms and stuff like that to find. There's no map to bring up, so you kind of don't really know where you're going, but it seems like a pretty big area. My thoughts are mainly this. If this old horse game can pull off mechanics like this with dressage, Star Stable has no excuse. But I don't want to get off topic. I am genuinely impressed by Riding Star. I think it is decently executed, entertaining, and feels rewarding. Graphically, it's pretty generic. It's an older game, so obviously you can't expect too much there. Initially, the controls are hard, and honestly, they could probably be better. But once you get used to it, it's definitely doable. I was surprised to see mixed reviews on Steam, but upon looking closer to the negative ones, the main complaint is the controls, which I completely understand. Another complaint is that the dressage is too complicated, but I honestly find that as a positive. Overall, I would recommend this game to anyone that enjoys horse games. It's priced at $9.99, which I feel is pretty fair since there's hours and hours of content, but if you absolutely can't bring yourself to pay $10 for a game this old, then get it on a sale. I think you'll enjoy it. Let me know down in the comments if you're familiar with Riding Star or if you have any other recommendations. And a big thank you to Rebecca Ravenbird for this one. I really enjoyed it. Thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, bye.